Godzilla The Series. This is going to be something that we're going to be trying to do weekly. Yes. And that's going to be reviewing one episode or one series of episodes every week. This first review is going to be the first two episodes because it's a two-parter.
Yes. There's a couple multi-episode arcs. Some of them are 3-episode arcs. Yeah. But it's been years. I mean, this came out in 1998 in September. The movie came out in May, and then by September, this series was on the air. I believe it was on Fox. Was it on Fox Kids?
Yeah, I believe it was Fox
Saturday
Kids.
Mornings?
Yeah. I think I only really remember like maybe the first episode. I don't know. I don't think this is a series that I followed. I really don't remember that much about it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's been, I don't even, how many years? When was 1998?
24 years?
That's
at
insane.
least.
Oh, my God. That's so long ago.
It is.
Yeah. But, so this, I think we watched through the whole thing. I mean, it only ran for 2 seasons. It's not a long series compared to Power Rangers or the constant ongoing Ultraman series after series.
Yeah.
But,
you know, obviously that's linked to the movie.
Yeah.
Obviously he was really good at selling toys and merchandise and all that stuff, but it didn't do great in the box office.
No.
They had plans to do other movies. I think they at least had planned for a trilogy, but that really wasn't in the cards, financially at least.
And this series is as close as we'll get to a direct sequel to that movie because the first episode opens immediately in the final moments of the movie. They
recreate basically the last like 3 or 4 minutes of the movie, and they make it like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
30 seconds worth of footage.
It's
yeah. So we just jump into the review, I guess, and we'll do our comments.
Yeah, we can jump into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we start off on the bridge, and Godzilla gets killed by the military. Audrey gives her a little sign off. She gives Nick credit for killing Godzilla, but he's like, I don't think I did this.
Yeah.
And he kind of just walks off because he's kind of done. And he goes and meets up with Hicks, who is the major. I believe that's his rank.
Yeah, Colonel.
Oh, it's a colonel.
He's played by Kevin Dunn. He was like the dad in Transformers, and the voice act. He came back to do the voice for the cartoon, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I recognized the character because of the voice, and I was like, "Oh my god, they got somebody who just nailed his voice." I didn't realize they actually got the actor to reprise his role.
They actually got him. Yeah, he reprised his role, and actually, I was looking at the cast. The mayor also. I forgot that guy's name, but the mayor also comes back to reprise his role too.
I think it's Robert Ebert.
It's the grouchy guy from Elf, the book editor. I forgot that actor's name. The guy that fired him.
Yes.
As boss. Yeah,
yes. No. I'm talking about the mayor's character.
Oh yeah.
Because I think they were making fun of the critics.
Oh yeah.
In the movie. But anyway, so we get Elsie and Craven back. And if you don't remember them from the Godzilla 98 movie, they were like the other scientists that were there with Nick. But they didn't really have that much screen time. Maybe they had like 2 minutes of screen time. Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of screen time, but in this series, they're
major characters.
They're like the main supporting cast. And then we also have some new characters too. We have Randy Hernandez. He's like the hacker man for Nick, who's apparently worked with Nick 14 months prior to all these events, but I'm pretty sure he didn't appear in the movie at all.
No, I don't believe. I think he's a just for the series character.
Yeah. And then another new character we get is Monique Dupree. She kind of replaced the Philip Roach character, which I don't understand why, really. I guess he had to go back to France to report his findings, and they just sent another French agent, secret agent, over to America.
I think they probably just wanted like a female agent, like badass, because I even though she's French and not like British, I kind of got like somewhat like Lara Croft vibes from her.
Yeah.
just as far as like the way that she acts and everything like
No,
that.
that's true. Yeah.
So I think they kind of wanted that type of character for this.
Yeah.
And then of course Aubrey's back. She's still the worst.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's so annoying in the show. She's like, why aren't you giving me a news story? I'm entitled to it. I'm your girlfriend now again.
Which they aren't.
Yeah. It does not seem that way at all.
Yeah. So, anyway, Nick's talking with Hicks, and they just bang on the same concept of just the military incompetence. At least that's what you think. He's like, we got to go back to Penn Station. He's like, we don't know if we got all the eggs, and if we didn't, we're just going to have another Godzilla, and we're just going to start these problems all over again. So Hicks was like, fine, we'll go back. And then the second they land, he's like, you got 45 minutes and we're out of here.
Yeah. He's like, I want to get out of here. I got plans. So they're walking through Madison Square Garden's caved in, Penn Station's caved in. It's just basically like a giant crater. They blew it up at the end of the movie. And at the end of the movie, you know, we saw the egg hatch and a baby Godzilla pop out, and everybody assumed there was going to be another movie. Didn't happen. We have this series. So basically, Nick is walking around the like I said, the ground's all unstable. There's a cave in. He falls down a hole, goes down a pipe, and lands in a puddle of like egg embryo from the eggs that were hatched, destroyed. And he stands up, and the final egg is there and hatches, and out comes Godzilla Jr., Zilla Jr., however you want to call it. And kind of sees Nick, goes over, sniffs him. He bangs into like an electric wire that sparks, and little Zilla takes off. And then Nick comes out, finds him, sees that he just jumps right into the Hudson and disappears. He reunites with Hicks, lets him know, hey, we got another one out there. And Hicks is like, he's like, all right, we'll find it. He was like, pack up your crew. You guys are done. We don't need your help anymore. So Nick goes back to his base in Staten Island that's on the water there. And they're talking it all over. And then little Zilla appears out of the water. And he's not so little anymore.
Yeah.
He's big.
Yeah, they tried luring him with like this little like trap. It was basically like a piece of sewer pipe with a bunch of fish in it, and then they'd have like a little fence go down, because he's thinking this is like human sized, so he doesn't think it's going to be that hard to catch, but he is not quite as big as Godzilla from the movie, but still quite large, probably about like 3 stories, I would say.
Yeah, about like 20 feet at least.
Yeah, I would say like around this, maybe like 2 stories or something. Yeah, around there.
But he went from, like I said, human size to like 20 feet in like, I don't know what it's supposed to be in the show, like a day. It seemed like a day. I
think it's supposed to be a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
And they kind of quickly figure out that he's friendly and is imprinted onto Nick, and kind of listens to what he's trying to direct him to do.
And it's because Nick had the embryo and then I guess smelt like
Godzilla
him, kind of,
or something.
So he was like, "Oh, you're my daddy or my mommy." So Nick has sort of picked up the paternal figure to Godzilla now.
Yeah, and one thing we forgot to mention when they were trying to capture Godzilla, there was some reports of things happening in Jamaica, and they, it's just a couple surfers got dragged underneath and they didn't know what it was, but we saw it was tentacles. So obviously we knew as viewers it wasn't Godzilla, but obviously nobody else in terms of the story knew that. So he's like,
the military's like, oh, maybe it's Godzilla down there already.
Yeah.
Like,
so when Godzilla pops up, Nick's kind of like, how is this possible? How did he get here from Jamaica? And he's like, it must not be Godzilla in Jamaica then. It's got to be something else.
Yeah.
And then I think we have about a month time jump, because the way Aubrey's talking, Aubrey comes to the scientific site, and the way she's talking to Nick, she's like, you haven't answered my phone calls in weeks. You promised me an exclusive. I haven't got that. And it sounds like she's just been waiting for him so she can start reporting stuff. Yeah, so she's kind of just not been doing anything for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and they've been bonding with the Godzilla, And in the meantime, Hicks is down in Jamaica looking for whatever it is down there. He's assuming it's Godzilla, but it's not.
Yeah.
And then he gets mysteriously gets a call saying, "Hey, something else is going on."
Yeah, we don't know who that whistleblower is yet.
So Hicks comes back to New York right as Aubrey also discovers Godzilla, and Nick assumes she's the one that ratted him out, but it was actually, we learn later on that it's Monique. She called him up, and Monique is working for the French Secret Service, and her mission was to have Godzilla eliminated, and she's one person, so she just tipped off the military, figured to have him taken out. So the military shows up. Godzilla fights back a little. Matt kind of Nick.
Yeah, but fighting back when he has to, clearly
Yes.
trying to avoid the fight. Though.
Yes. So Nick kind of directs him back into the warehouse. Says, "Go away." They shoot him with some missiles, and everyone kind of assumes he gets killed.
But yeah, that's the end of the episode. That's the end of episode number 1 on the cliffhanger. We missed the introduction of quite possibly the most important character in the series. So important though that I have to look up their name, and that is Nigel, the robot.
Oh yes, yeah, Nigel the robot. Yeah.
Basically, he's. I don't remember too much about the series, but I remember he's essentially Kenny from South Park. So
Yes.
he's going to get destroyed a lot. I think in this episode he gets destroyed like 3 times.
Yeah, it's Craven's little robot that just kind of does little tasks that he has to do. He had him putting out the buoys to track Godzilla for this episode, and Godzilla just whacked him away. And yeah, he kind of is kind of the Kenny of the series.
Yeah, Craven keeps rebuilding them, and Randy keeps hacking in pop culture references into his UI and just bothering Craven the entire time. And it's going to be like it's been like an ongoing joke, and even in the next episode, it's just like an ongoing like, why is this robot doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll start the next episode now. We start with part 2. Nick's like, "Oh, why'd you do that for?" They're being held inside the military base. All the news tapes get destroyed, and like the military is kind of basically like, "Hey, you have a Godzilla. You know you're not supposed to have one. Like, what are you even thinking?" So they're all holding him prisoner inside the scientific building. Hicks goes outside, and it's like, "Hey, listen, I know this is probably a very significant scientific research for you." He's like, "But you don't understand." He's like, "I have my orders. I didn't want to do what I just did there, but I had to. It's for the protection of the country and the rest of the world. I can't let you play scientist and have lives at danger." So you kind of get a different side of Hicks, where in the movie and at the beginning, basically all of episode 1, you see kind of how he's completely incompetent. He never listens to Nick. Actually, because of him, the crisis of the original Godzilla gets a lot worse than it should have gotten. And now you kind of see him in episode 2. He's kind of a little bit more reflective and like, "Hey, I'm kind of just doing my job, and I just want to go home, and I don't want to deal with this anymore."
Yeah.
So they think that everything's done, but stuff still keeps happening in Jamaica. So was it Elise?
Elise and Craven decide they're going down there, and Nick and Randy hang out up north for a little while in New York, and they get a call from Elise and Craven while they're out on the ship, saying they're finding this tar, and they don't know what's going on. And out comes these mutant squids, and they just grab the ship, pull it under, along with Elise and Craven, and you're like, "Oh man, they're dead!" Like just like that, it looks like they're dead.
Yeah.
But
we do get a little bit of hope though, because they were examining a fish that was also in this tar.
Yes.
And the fish was still alive, but it had all of its energy drained from it.
Yeah.
So like the tar was taking out all of its electrolytes, but also keeping it alive for.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like it was keeping him in a stasis.
Yeah. So obviously Nick hops on a boat with.
Which is.
You can continue.
Oh yeah, which is provided by Monique Dupree, which she kind of appears randomly in their base of operations there in Staten Island. This is where she's first introduced, actually, is in this episode. And we find out she was the one from the first episode that called the military. And she's like, listen, I got a job to do also. I'm here to kill him. But that happened. And I can help you out, though. I can give you a team. I can give you some equipment to do some more research in case another monster comes by. And when she hears word of this, she provides them this boat, which I don't think they named yet, because they did kind of like say, oh, what are we going to name it? But they didn't. It's a rust bucket, it looks like. And they start leaving the harbor to try to rush to help Craven it. But they're in New York, and they got to go all the way down to Jamaica. So that's a long ride. It's not a day's ride.
It's like 3 days.
But Monique hits like the turbo, and like the boat lifts out of the water, and there's like jet engine. So I guess it's like a super boat or something.
Yeah.
So it's not your standard boat, even though it looks like a rust bucket.
Yeah.
And they get down there, and they find the same thing. They find the tar, and they see Elise's phone floating in the water. They pick up the phone, and then quickly their boat becomes attacked and overrun with the giant mutant squid. And they're like, this is clearly what took them and what the issue is down here. And one of them grabs Nick. They're all trying to hide it up below deck, but Nick gets pulled out. And then all of a sudden, that one gets sucked under the water. Then the other one, and the other one. And then, boom, Godzilla followed him all the way to Jamaica. And
oh, yeah.
He just destroys these giant squid.
Oh, yeah. They're relatively small compared to him. Like, they might be like 10 feet, and he's like... The scaling on the show is a little weird sometimes.
Yes.
As far as Godzilla's size. But, like, he is towering over these squids.
Yeah, he's even towering over the boat at this point. He looks like even bigger than he was before.
Yeah, like we were saying like, oh, maybe he's like 2 or 3 stories high. Now he's like half a skyscraper. But then later on in the episode, he'll be a little bit smaller now.
Yeah.
So the scaling is a little off, but it's a cartoon. Just have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he's just destroying these squid, manhandles them, and then just swims off. He kind of gets dragged down for like a second.
Yeah.
But
and then he comes up double fisting them and just cooks them up.
Yeah. So they go to shore. They find more of these squid. Actually, I think at this point they have retrieved Craven and Elise and revived them.
Yes.
The pacing of the show is incredibly fast. So things happen every 30 seconds.
Yes.
On this show, it's very fast. So they revive Elise and Craven. They go back to shore. They find more dead squid, but these squids aren't. There's no char marks on them. They weren't atomic breathed at all. They're just dead. And as they're discussing this, out from the water comes this giant like. I got like shrimp vibes, but it had tentacles and it had walking hands. It was like an amalgamation of a bunch of different animals.
They call it Crustaceous Rex.
Yeah.
And yeah, it walks on 2 legs. It's like a skull crawler with tentacles, and like it looks like the Demogorgon face from Stranger Things. It's got a lot going on, yeah.
Yeah, a really weird design, which this series is kind of known for, like these outlandish, crazy... If you ever watched the Men in Black cartoon series back from the 90s, it's a very similar art style, and like the way that like the aliens looked are kind of like the way the monsters look in here with like these crazy amalgamation designs. It's like really nice.
Yeah, and they were throughout the series they're referred to as mutants, actually. A lot of these monsters, they call them mutants. So they're called mutations.
Yeah. This show was made incredibly fast and with almost no budget. So one thing I do know is that they did want to use Toho monsters, but didn't obviously have the time or the money to get the licenses for them. So they would design their own stuff that was maybe similar, but not quite the same.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this monster is now on a rampage because one thing that's really good about this is the science is kind of behind everything in this series. And they're like, well, Godzilla killed his entire food supply because he was eating the giant squid, clearly. So now it's just on land rampaging because it has nothing to eat. So it's going to destroy everything in Jamaica. So it starts stomping about. And yeah, did you want to continue?
Oh yeah, and then like they kind of put like two and two together because they were like there was this tar substance. It eats tar, so it starts eating like asphalt and it starts eating a road that's being worked on, and so Nick and Monique, they take a truck filled with like the blacktop and it chases the truck. They drive it to the cliff and Godzilla pops up, begins fighting Crustaceous Rex, and they kind of battle up to a cliff. Godzilla lures him up to the cliff, and once he gets up to the cliff, Godzilla jumps down, sort of burrows underground, and carves out the whole cliffside and makes it collapse, and the cliff collapses on a Crustaceous Rex, basically, and Godzilla wins the fight.
Yeah. And he gets it's this awesome scene though where like it's falling down, but its tentacles grab onto Godzilla.
Yes,
Godzilla just atomic breaths it.
Yeah.
All the way down, cuts off the tentacles. It goes down to the ground, and then just the entire cliffside just falls right on top of it. But
mass destruction.
Yeah, but Godzilla's still kind of like maybe a few weeks old, so it clumsily falls down the side of the cliff itself. It gets the mountain falling on top of it as well, but because it's such a good tunneler and burrower, it just comes out.
Yeah, it came right out.
Like big victory pose.
Yeah. And then Hicks shows up with the military, and they're lining up to take Godzilla out again. But then Nick's like, listen, man, you just saw there was another monster. It wasn't Godzilla doing this. He helped us. He's the only reason we won. So are you really going to kill him? He's our only defense. What if there's another monster out there? Who's going to stop him next time? And the military is pretty much waiting for the kill call from Hicks, and Hicks basically gets on the radio and says, hey, Godzilla's dead. And they're like, excuse me, sir? And he's like, you heard me. Godzilla's dead. Do you understand? And they're kind of like, all right. And they just turn around and leave. So Hicks is pretty much letting Godzilla live another day. And it's kind of keeping it secret from...
Yeah.
I don't know. He's sort of keeping it secret that this giant lizard's alive. But clearly there were all these helicopters and jets flying around and boats. Like, they all saw him. How are you going to keep that a secret? But Hicks has become more cooperative, and he's going to let Godzilla be the hero of the series.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I guess just final comments about this. I thought that the attention to detail was really good. And one of the things that you can tell that the people who did this really cared was one of the gags throughout, like, the first couple episodes, or the first two episodes, was that Craven was sick and was sneezing the whole time. But obviously there was like a couple week time jump, and he sneezes, but right after he sneezes, he goes and says, oh, I just got my flu shot. So like they wanted to continue the gag, but they knew it wouldn't make a logical sense. I don't think any kid would have put together that he shouldn't still be sick. They didn't have to add that into the series, but they went ahead and did it anyway, just so they covered themselves.
Yeah. Okay, a couple weeks passed and this guy's still sick.
Yeah. So I was like, you know, gotta give them props for really putting it in here. The animation's really good. We are watching this on the Millcreek DVD set that came out, the complete series. So there is some compression involved there. I think you own some Sony DVDs.
Yes, but they're like... It's
not the full series.
Arcs. It's not the full series.
Yeah.
There's a couple 3-episode arcs, and I believe that's what those DVDs are.
Yeah. Those ones, for anyone who's looking to watch along and maybe get a somewhat better version, those are much more expensive, but they don't have the compression on it. So those episodes do look better if you were to watch them on those, because they are not compressed. But for something cheap, I think this series runs about like... What was it, like $10? Yeah, it's super cheap.
$10 on DVD.
So if you guys want to watch along, I would recommend going and picking it up for $10. Yeah. It's the cheapest way you're going to get to watch this.
And it's absolutely great. I mean, I've been seeing a lot on Twitter the last couple of years saying how awesome the series was. I don't remember, like you said, it's 1998. I can't believe how long it's been.
Yeah,
24 years.
Yeah, and
24?
Yeah, 24 years. And you know, one of the things with this series was obviously they planned on doing more Godzilla movies, and that did not happen. No. They planned on having those new movies being more like traditional Toho Godzilla movies, but with this design, which again, I know a lot of people don't like the design, but I think it's pretty cool, and I think for the 90s it made sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's grown on a lot more people
definitely
over time.
The people who've grown up with it are more accepting of it.
Yeah. There's still a lot of people that hate it though, but
yeah,
it's really enjoyable.
You know, and a lot of the issue is with that movie. There's a lot of issues with the 98 movie, to say the least. But I think if it wasn't named Godzilla, people would accept it as a pretty decent movie. It still has some fundamental issues, and I think some of these issues are from, honestly, the production team themselves, where they were so resilient to things that they added things to the movie to fight back from critics, which doesn't make any sense. Like the fact that this Godzilla is a man that gives birth, and they are very insistent on the fact that it is a male Godzilla because somehow they gendered it somehow. But even though it lays eggs and can pass human pregnancy test and all this stuff, it's just because a tabloid said, "Oh, Godzilla lays eggs and it's a woman in this series," and like, no, it's a very, very manly Godzilla. Like, it's just like the Roland Emmerich, just like, this needs to be Independence Day.
Well, I've read recently that he didn't even want to make this movie.
He wanted to do a monster movie.
He went completely bonkers with it, hoping that they would turn him down. They're like, "Yeah, no, that's good, make that." Oh, here's a crap. Like,
yeah,
he like bluffed when he was like, he didn't want to make this movie.
No,
he didn't want to direct it, and they were like, "No, we want you to direct it." And he was like, "All right, I guess I got to direct it."
And then they wanted it to be so based in reality. The first movie, that they took out a lot of the Godzilla traits, and that's what led people to being upset. Now, they said, "Oh, this was all intentional, and we wanted to do this." Meanwhile, in the planned sequel, where I think he was supposed to fight like a giant insect or something, if I'm remembering properly, the new Godzilla was going to have atomic breath, just like in the cartoon. So I don't know what happened as far as...
I really like the green atomic breath in the cartoon.
It is awesome. I love the green motif. That's why I did the green lightning, because I was like, I'm doing this up.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to watch along with us, this is the first 2 episodes, and next week we're going to be doing the third episode.
Yeah.
All right.